This is Part 2, Episode 56. On the giant peak, destructive fluctuations gushed out from Mu Chen's body as low and deep rumbles of thunder continuously rang out from within him. As those sounds resounded, even the sky seemed to turn dark and overcast. Countless gazes converged on Mu Chen's body, which was covered in black lightning liquid that was flowing across the entire surface of his body. Due to the successive shocks and astonishment they had received from him, the faces of a large number of people started to gradually turn calm. Instead, their gazes towards Mu Chen started to turn peculiar and weird, since the latter's performance had exceeded far beyond their expectations. Are the current freshmen strong to such a level? The gazes of Lin Jing and Zhu Qingshan had also turned strange. They never imagined that a freshman, whose strength was only at the heavenly transformation stage initial phase, would actually be able to force Jiyu Qianyang to such a miserable state. Upon hearing that, the gazes of Shen Sangsheng and Li Xiantong in the distance intersected for a moment. Obviously, they were also unable to understand the hidden cards that Mu Chen had now displayed. However, regardless of that, to them, this was not bad news. The fight in front of them had seemingly turned slightly towards Mu Chen's favor. Staring at Mu Chen, whose current appearance had become somewhat terrifying, Jiyu Qianyan's eyes turned increasingly solemn and grave. At this moment, the destructive fluctuations radiating from the former's body had made his heart start to palpitate and tremble. Strength of such a level shouldn't appear on the body of a freshman, whose strength was only at the level of a heavenly transformation stage initial phase. Taking in a deep breath, scarlet-red spiritual energy curled onto his arms, akin to raging flames. Across the horizon, boundless scarlet-red spiritual energy swept out, akin to a prairie full of heavenly fire. At this moment, he could no longer continue to show any mercy. Boom! As boundless spiritual energy gushed out of Jiyu Qianyan's body, Mu Chen, who was completely covered in the black lightning liquid, had already taken a step forward. Instantly, the earth trembled as peals of thunder resounded. Akin to a black bolt of lightning, Mu Chen instantly shot out. Looking at the black bolt of lightning heading his way, while radiating with devastating fluctuations, Jiyu Qianyan's eyes instantly narrowed. With a clench of his hands, scarlet-red spiritual energy erupted out, before transforming into a long flaming spear in his hands. Hong! As a tremble shook through his arms, the long flaming spear transformed into a fiery streak of light. Shattering space, while carrying along violent and explosive fluctuations, it fiercely shot towards Mu Chen. Facing the berserking fiery long spear flying explosively towards him, Mu Chen did not show any sign of wanting to give way to it. Clenching his hand tightly to form a fist, the black lightning liquid enveloped his fist, which he violently sent rumbling towards the fiery long spear. Bang! As they violently collided, the fiery spear, which was capable of piercing through an expert at the heavenly transformation stage late phase, was directly sent shooting away by Mu Chen's fist, before transforming in fluttering scarlet-red bits that blotted the sky. In the next moment, Mu Chen's figure traveled through the plume that was created. In a flash, he had already arrived right in front of Jiyu Qianyang. Bang! Bang! Without the slightest courtesy and hesitation, Mu Chen's black lightning liquid-covered fists howled. Transforming into shades, they hid the skies and covered the earth as they hurtled towards Jiyu Qianyang. Every single fist sent out was abnormally frightening, with even the surrounding space showing slight traces of distortion. If it was before, Jiyu Qianyang might have commented on Mu Chen's stupidity for wanting to engage in close-quarter combat. After all, the difference in strength between the two of them was too large. Mu Chen could only rely on special methods to defeat him. In a head-on confrontation, the latter would lose without a doubt. However, facing the attacks that Mu Chen had launched at him now, Jiyu Qianyang did not dare to show the slightest negligence. The current Mu Chen, who was enveloped in the black lightning liquid, was too terrifying. The strength radiating from the former was to such a degree that made even him feel a sliver of dread. Boundless scarlet-red spiritual energy erratically gushed out from Jiyu Qianyan's body. In an instant, his arms were covered in a majestic layer of scarlet-red crystals, the embodiment of the degree of condensation of his spiritual energy. After unleashing all of the spiritual energy within his body without any restraint, Jiyu Qianyan's gaze started to turn scorchingly hot, and fighting intent erupted from his eyes. Roar! A howl resounded from his throat as he too took a step forward. Sending his fists howling out, they seemed to have transformed into a boundless sea of fighting intent as they violently rumbled out. Boom! 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 Seemingly in an instant, fists of the two collided into each other. Akin to meteors striking the earth, they erupted with extremely astonishing erratic fluctuations. Everyone watching could only see the black lighting, as well as the scarlet-red spiritual energy, frantically erupting about, and the figures of the two violently collided into one another. As fist shadows dissipated, everyone could see the deep and enormous holes that they created around the surrounding earth. Countless people became tongue-tied as they watched the crazily clashing figures hidden behind the erratic eruption of spiritual energy. The raw confrontation, when fists smashed against flesh, caused the hearts of countless people to feel fear and trepidation. No one would have guessed that this fight would be violent and ferocious to such a degree. Bang! Under the countless gazes that showed fear and trepidation, the fists of the two, whose eyes had already turned red, violently smashed against each other in the erratic eruption of spiritual energy. Shock waves visible to the naked eye swept out, and the entire stretch of the earth there instantly cracked and shattered. Bang! Rumble! Destructive black lightning seemed to flash within Mu Chen's eyes as the black lightning liquid started to squirm and wriggle on his arm, causing destructive energies to gush out from within. Bang! Once again, Mu Chen's black lightning-covered fist smashed straight against Jiyu Qianyan's scarlet-red crystal-covered fist. Black-colored ripples radiated out as Jiyu Qianyan's face instantly changed. Some cracks had, unexpectedly, started to appear on the scarlet-red crystal on his fist. The destructive fluctuations within the black lightning liquid continued to ceaselessly pervade him. Under these destructive fluctuations, the spiritual energy within Jiyu Qianyan's body started to rapidly get destroyed and defeated. Go back! A hoarse roar furiously rang out from Mu Chen's mouth, causing the black ripples to violently tremble. Instantly, the crystal layer on Jiyu Qianyan's arm completely shattered, while his body was flung back 1,000 meters by the former's fist. As Jiyu Qianyan was sent flying, Mu Chen's feet dug deep into the hard rock ground below him by the rebounding force, causing him to almost flip backwards. He sent Jiyu Qianyan flying yet again. Shocked, clamoring voices rang out once again from the surroundings of the spiritual light mountain as excitement and strong emotions surfaced within the eyes of countless students. No one would have imagined that the current Mu Chen would be frightening to the point he was actually able to send Jiyu Qianyan retreating in a head-on confrontation. Under the soaring atmosphere, Mu Chen pressed his hands on the ground and pulled himself out from the earth as a bit of the black lightning liquid flowed out. Raising his head, he looked towards Jiyu Qianyan, who he had sent flying. At this moment, there weren't any traces left of the initial expression he had in the beginning of the fight, since blood was continuously dripping from his arms. Not only was his clothing tattered, his head of fiery red hair had turned messy and charcoal black. The energy contained by shattering that black lightning bead had far exceeded Mu Chen's expectations. This energy was too terrifying. Even with him learning the lightning god's physique, there were still some pretty serious internal injuries within his body. Thinking about it, if he didn't learn the lightning god's physique, and possessed the ability granted by it to absorb the strength of lightning to temper his fleshly body, the current him would have been completely fried by the energy of the black lightning and turn into ashes. Regardless of that, he was unable to maintain this state for too long. As of now, his current body was simply unable to endure the devastating black lightning that was wreaking havoc. I have to end this fast. Instead of succumbing to the intense pain radiating from within his body, it had caused Mu Chen to maintain his calmness at all times. Eyes sparkling, he did not allow the advantage that he seemed to have gained to flood his mind, as he firmly decided to prevent this fight from dragging on any longer. Bang! Just as this thought flashed past Mu Chen's mind, an exceedingly erratic spiritual energy fluctuation suddenly rushed to the heavens in the faraway sky. Raising his head, Mu Chen saw that the horizon present before him had already turned into a purgatory of flames. Under the burning horizon, Jiyu Qianyang stood erect. As of now, his eyes were scarlet red, as if flames had erupted from them. Staring tightly at Mu Chen, a hoarse sound rang throughout the horizon. Mu Chen, with your strength at the heavenly transformation stage initial phase, you're the first person that is able to force me to such a stage. I admired your capabilities. In this fight today, if you're able to receive this move of mine, it'll be considered your victory. Upon shouting those words, Jiyu Qianyang did not show the slightest hesitation. Rapidly placing his hands together, he formed a seal. Following the seal's formation, the scarlet-red spiritual energy that blotted the horizon hid the skies and covered the earth as they rapidly converged in his hands. Bang! Bang! As the scarlet-red spiritual energy crazily converged, a scarlet-red halberd, approximately 10 meters long, was faintly discernible as it finally formed within Jiyu Qianyang's hands. The long halberd was akin to a twisting fiery dragon, looking exceedingly malevolent and sinister. Its entire body was scarlet red, as if it was made entirely of scarlet red crystals. As the fiery dragon slowly wriggled and squirmed, indescribably erratic fluctuations started to ripple and undulate. Roar! As the fiery dragon roared, the entire stretch of the world seemed to be in a fiery and scorching state. He even had to use that move. The eyes of both Lin Jing and Zhu Qingshan contracted. Both of them had deep understanding of Jiyu Qianyang, and naturally had ample knowledge of his skills and abilities. The move the latter was using right now was considered the strongest attack in his arsenal. At the beginning of the fight, who would have expected that Jiyu Qianyang, who had victory grasped within his hands, would be forced to such a stage? Both Shen Sangsheng and Li Xiantong had also raised their heads and stared gravely at the horizon. Anyone could tell that at this stage of the fight, both parties had already brought out all of their trump cards. In this fight today, even if Mu Chen were to lose, there would be absolutely no one that would mutter half a word of doubt. Looks like this is his final move. Following the appearance of the fiery dragon halberd, Jiyu Qianyang's face turned somewhat pale. As his scarlet-red eyes stared at Mu Chen, he furiously took a step forward. As a tremble shook through his arm, the long halberd erupted with scarlet-red light that blotted the skies. Great heavenly fiery dragon halberd. Roar! Within the sea of flames, a dragon roar seemed to resound as the flames that blotted the sky erupted out. Transforming into a scarlet streak of light, the fiery dragon halberd shot across the horizon, before enveloping Mu Chen within its light. Within the scarlet streak of light, the fiery dragon spread its jaws and claws open as the dragon roar shook the earth. Raising his head, Mu Chen looked at the scorching gale blowing at him, causing the earth around him to be roasted to the point of cracking and shattering. Within his black eyes, the destructive black lightning started to grow increasingly erratic. Placing his palms together, the black lightning liquid started to flow within his palms, before fiercely forming a seal with his hands. At this moment, spiritual energy erupted from his back, before transforming into a starry sky. Within the starry sky, spiritual energy that blotted the sky gushed out as a tiger, and a tortoise stepped out from within, appearing simultaneously. Roar! Moo! As they roared and howled together, countless nervous and emotional gazes immediately swept over, while noticing the black lightning twisting and arching around their bodies. A dragon, a tiger and a tortoise. Shattering the skies, under the gazes of countless people who were close to suffocating under their pent-up breaths, they furiously collided against each other. The skies turned dark and overcast, while every single gaze in the surroundings of the spiritual light mountain was focused on the air above the giant peak. There were two frightening attacks that caused everyone to shudder and tremble. They howled, before violently colliding like two comets that streaked across the skies. In that instant, an intense shock wave rang and resounded across the entire hunting grounds. The dazzlingly intense light produced was akin to a scorching sun, sending its intense rays of light that shattered the darkness of the world. Under the eye-piercing light, the eyes of countless people could not help turning narrow. Boom! As the intense sun surfaced in the sky, the dragon, tiger and tortoise released all of the strongest energies contained within them without the slightest bit of restraint. This caused an approximate 1,000-meter wide spiritual energy storm to form, and faint traces of distortions could be faintly discernible in the surrounding space. Everyone tightly stared at the incomparably large spiritual energy storm. As the spiritual energy within it grew increasingly erratic, the storm started to distort, traces of it being unable to contain the energy within it any longer. Creak! As the distortions present within the spiritual energy storm reached its limit, before the crowd could react, it exploded, causing 1,000-meter wide spiritual energy ripples to sweep across the skies. That was a rather spectacular scene. Being at the frontmost position against the shock waves, Mu Chen and Jiyu Qianyang both bore the greatest brunt of it. Although the two of them had done their utmost to defend against them, they were still sent flying the instant they made contact with them. Bang! Bang! As the bodies of the two flew out, the neighboring mountain peaks were all smashed through by them. Bang! Finally, the two of them smashed straight into the inside of the two mountain peaks. Rocks rolled down, covering and burying the both of them up. While both of them had miserable outcomes, the people close to the giant peak were akin to small fishes stuck in churning waters, as each of them was sent tumbling into a pitiful state. There were some that were even more unlucky, being sent twisting in the air while spurting out blood from their mouths. However, it was fortunate that this was, after all, just the aftermath of the collision, with not much destruction being caused. After a few minutes, the devastating spiritual energy storm started to slowly get weaker, bit by bit. Only when that happened did the surrounding crowd start to regain their senses, and turned their gazes towards the giant peak. Unable to bear it, their mouths started to twitch. As of now, the lowering giant peak was in a completely ruined state, with giant cracks extending from it, akin to a spider web, covering it entirely. The collision between the two had seemingly destroyed the entire towering giant peak. This caused quite a few people to feel shock and astonishment within their hearts. The destructive power of these two people was too terrifying. What about the two of them? Someone thought about the two main characters, before hurriedly turning their gazes towards the two collapsed mountain peaks in the distance. Those students that participated in the hunt were, as of now, incomparably nervous and anxious. Mu Chen's victory, or defeat concerned all of them being able to acquire the spiritual light empowerment. As of now, Shun Sangsheng and Li Xiantong had yet to make their move, as even they were waiting for Mu Chen to give some closure for them. As long as Mu Chen was able to finish his fight with a draw, all of the students there would basically achieve a definite victory in the combined results. However, if Mu Chen lost, they would need to win a fight amongst the last two. Furthermore, thinking about the need for them to defy the heavens to pull off a reversal, this would be an extremely difficult task to accomplish for even Shun Sangsheng and Li Xiantong. After all, both Lin Jing and Zhu Qingshan, who had yet to make a move, weren't people that were easy to deal with. At this moment, the expressions on Shen Sangxing's and Li Xuantong's faces turned increasingly grave and solemn. Locking their sights on the two collapsed mountain peaks, even with their strong emotional control, their hearts started to beat faster. Contrary to them, Lin Jing and Zhu Qingshan remained more calm and collected. However, their tight and unwavering gazes reveal their concern for the result. The entire stretch of the world turned quiet again, while everyone awaited the result. However, the pressure coming from the surroundings was extremely fierce, causing people to be unable to catch their breath. This atmosphere was similarly present in the northern square, since everyone was staring tightly at the gigantic light screen in the sky, while tightly clenching their hands. The previous fight had admittedly caused them to feel shock, as well as sighing in admiration. However, regardless of that, the result was the most important. Crash! Boom! Under the attentive gazes of countless people, rocks started to suddenly shift and roll down from one of the collapsed mountain peaks, causing everyone's gazes to hurriedly turn over. Over there, a scarlet-red spiritual energy rushed to the skies, before a figure rushed out from within the collapsed mountain peak. "That's Jiyu Qianyang," someone exclaimed. The scarlet-red light slowly dissipated, revealing Jiyu Qianyang. As of now, his entire body was covered in blood, with his face appearing exceedingly pale. The spiritual energy surrounding his body appeared extremely weak and exhausted, without being as strong as his initial appearance. Obviously, the previously astonishing clash was not something light for Jiyu Qianyang. Upon noticing the reappearance of Jiyu Qianyang, the hearts of countless students could not help sinking. Although he had suffered serious injuries, he was still not at the stage where he was unable to continue the fight. As for Mu Chen, looking at the other collapsed mountain peak that was showing no signs of activity, their palms were all filled with sweat. This kind of silence continued for a short moment. Creak! At the other collapsed mountain peak, the rocks started to shift and roll down. Everyone's eyes turned large when they noticed a weak black ray of spiritual energy rushing out from within the layer of rocks that were pushed apart. Within the black spiritual energy, a figure stumbled and staggered as he shot through the air, before stopping a short distance away. It was Mu Chen. However, as of now, he was entirely covered in blood, with rather serious and terrible-looking wounds on his body. Compared to Jiyu Qianyang, he obviously appeared more miserable and pitiful. However, even though he had suffered such serious injuries, he still stood perfectly straight in the air. As of now, the youthful figure appeared exceedingly thin. As his tattered clothing fluttered in the wind, his miserable-looking appearance was unexpectedly unable to conceal the imposing aura that made people's hearts palpitate. Due to his injuries, the eyes of the youth had appeared dark and dim. Staring fiercely at Jiyu Qianyang in the distance, they appeared akin to a ferocious gaze of a wolf or a tiger. Countless gazes blankly stared at the youth that still stood up on the sky, covered in fresh blood. The silence continued for a long moment, before it was broken by the earth-shattering cheers. Facing Jiyu Qianyang's strongest attack, Mu Chen had managed to successfully endure it. He did not collapse. Countless students were emotional to the point that their faces were turning red as they waved their hands in the air. Their gazes looking at the thin figure in the sky were filled with admiration and worship. These kinds of gazes had already resembled those that were used when they looked at Shen Sangxing and Li Xiantong, and no one else. Too awesome. The faces of the three Wang brothers had also turned red, and their expressions were filled with emotions. As of now, their eyes were filled with respect. Mu Chen's performance in this fight had completely won them over. Naturally, they knew that the people being conquered would be many of the Northern Heavens Spiritual Academy students. From this day onwards, Mu Chen's place within the academy might not be much weaker than Shen Sangxing and Li Xiantong. Even influential characters, like Su Xian and He Yao had already been tossed far far away by Mu Chen. Su Linga had also started to cheer, with her lovable face turning red, while emotionally grabbing onto Su Xian's wrist. Previously, she had almost suffocated while watching the fight. If Mu Chen had lost in the final exchange, she would have simply lost her life. Su Xian gently nodded her small head as she looked at Mu Chen's figure with a gentle smile on her face. Who would have thought that a few months ago, this freshman was still an unknown person within the Northern Heavens Spiritual Academy? However, now, perhaps he would become the fastest improving freshman in the history of the Northern Heavens Spiritual Academy. Contrary to everyone, Luo Li did not show the same level of emotions as the others. Staring quietly at Mu Chen, a faint upwardly curling arc appeared at the corners of her small red lips. She had always believed that the youth that she loved would be someone that became as dazzling as the stars. Regardless of before, or now, or even in the future. Hu Tilda. Shen Sangxing and Li Xiantong both exhaled a quiet breath of relief as they looked at Mu Chen's figure. Unable to help it, they nodded their heads as they thought, that fellow truly makes people have a whole new level of respect for him. In the sky, Jiyu Qianyang had also looked with complicated emotions at the battered and exhausted youth, whose eyes were still shining exceedingly bright. Hearing the deafening sounds of cheering coming from the surroundings, he could not help letting out a bitter laugh. When he was still a student, there were a lot of people then that had cheered for him in the same manner. However, as of now, the positions were reversed. Senior brother Jiyu, did you have a great fight? If you feel that it's not enough, I might be able to accompany you for a move or two more. From a distance, Mu Chen slowly wiped away the blood stains at the corners of his mouth as he spoke out, while a smile that was hard to raise appeared on his mouth. Upon hearing that, Jiyu Qianyang made a laugh, before slowly relaxing his body. Gesturing with his hand, he said, "It's all right. If I continue to say anything more, I'm afraid I'll invoke the anger of the crowd. Furthermore, I said earlier that if you're able to receive that move of mine, you'll be the victor of this fight." After saying those words, Jiyu Qianyang's gaze turned serious as he stared at Mu Chen. Cupping his hands, a low and deep voice slowly rang throughout the sky. "I've lost this fight." His actions had shown that he had already placed Mu Chen on equal grounds to himself. As of now, to him, the latter was no longer just a freshman of heavenly transformation stage initial phase. "Thanks for going easy, senior brother Jiyu." Without being unreasonable, Mu Chen gently nodded his head. He had risked his life for this fight. But it was all worth it. Following his words, the cheering voices in the surroundings instantly rose another notch as countless people became so emotional that their faces turned red. Mu Chen won. Mu Chen won. As countless sounds of cheering resounded, even the students at the Northern Square, who had not participated in the hunt, were feeling abnormally emotional. This fight was sufficient to make their hot blood boil. On the podium, a few elders had also faintly nodded their heads. Obviously, they felt extremely satisfied by the fight that had just occurred. "Dean, looks like our Northern Heavens Spiritual Academy has another new monstrous talent." "Congratulations," said a white-haired old man sitting beside Dean Taikang. As of now, there was also a faint smile present on Dean Taikang's face as he looked at the youth in the light screen, before slowly replying, "For the sake of that Ji Xian, Saint Spiritually Academy had not hesitated to use those underhanded moves. However, I have to tell them that our Northern Heavens Spiritual Academy's Mu Chen isn't any weaker than him." While deafening cheering sounds resounded around them, on the giant peaks, both Shen Sangxing and Li Xiantong had smiled and laughed. In the next moment, they turned around, looking at Lin Jing and Zhu Qingshan, who had slightly complicated expressions on their faces. "Senior, the next fights should be our turn now." On the two giant peaks, Shen Sangxing and Li Xiantong respectively looked towards Lin Jing and Zhu Qingshan. As of now, the expressions on their faces were undeniably much more relaxed than before, stemming from their self-confidence. Although Lin Jing and Zhu Qingshan weren't so easy to deal with that even Shen Sangxing and Li Xiantong were not daring to even say they were absolutely able to defeat them, to them, achieving a draw in such a fight wasn't something difficult. Of the 3 fights, Mu Chen had already won 1. Even if they were to both draw, or lose 1 fight, in the end, they would still achieve victory. Naturally, losing 1 match was something that they would obviously not do. In front of them, Mu Chen had become so miserable just to achieve a win. If they were to lose, they would truly be unable to explain themselves in front of all the students. Looking at each other in the eyes, Lin Jing and Zhu Qingshan both gave helpless laughs. They never imagined that the final checkpoint would come to such a stage. In the surroundings of the spiritual light mountain, the cheering sounds that had lasted for quite a while gradually grew softer, as everyone looked excitedly at the confrontations happening on the other 2 giant peaks. With the advantage on their side, after Mu Chen's victory, they had already seemingly won half of the final fight. As long as no aberrations happened during Shen Sangxing and Li Xuanteng's fight, victory would definitely be theirs. Looking at the scene before him, Mu Chen finally relaxed his body completely. What happened after this was already none of his concern. He had already done what he was able to do, and he had completely achieved his goal. Upon completely relaxing, the weakness of his body instantly surfaced from the depths, causing him to stagger and stumble. Suddenly, a clear and beautiful fragrance blossomed from behind him as Luo Li appeared beside him. Without any scruples on the blood that covered his entire body, her white and slender hands supported Mu Chen's body, before resting him on her lovable body. As Luo Li supported Mu Chen, she looked at the heart-wrenching injuries present on his body. These were all caused by the Black Lightning's energy, causing them to look extremely horrifying. For the sake of enduring such power, Mu Chen had shouldered an extreme amount of pain and suffering. "Are you all right?" asked Luo Li softly, concern flashing within her clear and limpid eyes. Although she was not willing to have Mu Chen engage in such life-threatening fights and earnestly wished to help him, she knew that she couldn't interfere in these kinds of matters. It wasn't a question of the dignity of a male, but a responsibility. This was the responsibility that Mu Chen had embraced, and he needed to face it by himself. Similarly, he would not wish for anyone to interfere and take action, including her. Smiling, Mu Chen extended his hand to embrace Luo Li's slender waist, with his body seemingly pasted on her soft and delicate body. At this moment, his body would faintly tremble from time to time, originating from the intense pain radiating from within his body. These tremors were extremely minute, causing others to be unable to discover them. Luo Li was only able to feel them when he rested on her, causing her to feel even more concern for him. "Everything that happens from now is of no concern to me," said Mu Chen, while looking at the 2 giant peaks in the distance. Regardless of the results of the final fights, he was unable to interfere at all. "You've already completed the most important part. There shouldn't be much more suspense in the following 2 fights," Luo Li said with a slight smile as she continued, "Congratulations. As of now, you've truly become an influential character at the peak of the Northern Heavens Spiritual Academy." "I don't care about such things," replied Mu Chen, as he stared at Luo Li's beautiful and exquisite face, before continuing to say slowly, "For me, you came to the Northern Heavens Spiritual Academy. This has already consumed your training time. Although I've done nothing about this, I can at least do my utmost to reduce your losses. I don't care about other people getting their spiritual light empowerment, however, that's something that you definitely need to have." Hearing his words, Luo Li gawked. Looking at the youth, although he had some blood stains on his face, it was still as handsome and dashing. A slightly acidic feeling rose on her small nose. "Was this the reason why you would risk your life?" "I don't think that I've lost anything. On the contrary, during these past few years, especially the time within the Northern Heavens Spiritual Academy, I've never felt more happiness in my entire life, said Luo Li gently as a gentle and beautiful smile blossomed on her face. Hearing her words, Mu Chen smiled as the arm wrapped around Luo Li's waist slowly grew tighter, seemingly as though he wanted to sink her into his body. As Mu Chen continued to enjoy the gentle and fragrant embrace, under the gazes of countless people, Shen Sangxing and Li Xiantong slowly took a step forward on the two giant peaks. Bang! Boundless spiritual energy shot through the skies, as the pressure coming from the two strong spiritual energies flooded out. Instantly, the entire stretch of the sky was enveloped under the spiritual energy fluctuations radiating from the two. Obviously, Shen Sangxing and Li Xiantong had already prepared to use their full strength in their fights. Contrary to expectations, facing the strong spiritual energy pressing down on them, the expressions on Lin Jing and Zhu Qingshan still remained calm and unchanged. Senior brother Lin Jin. Senior brother Qingshan. Cupping their hands at the same time, both Shen Sangxing and Li Xiantong roared in a low voice, "Please give your guidance." Bang! As they roared, the expression within the eyes of the two instantly became fierce and sharp. Stomping their feet on the ground, their figures instantly shot out as the spiritual energy that hid the skies and blotted the earth rapidly converged together. Looking at the two shooting towards them with fierce fighting intent erupting from them, Lin Jing and Zhu Qingshan shot a look at each other. After helplessly shrugging their shoulders, they made a move. Unexpectedly, out of everyone's expectations, they had taken a step back. Facing the attacks of Shen Sangxing and Li Xiantong, they had unexpectedly retreated. Whoosh! Clamoring noises instantly resounded across the world. Although Shen Sangxing and Li Xiantong were strong, they were obviously incapable of scaring Lin Jing and Zhu Qingshan away. Feeling somewhat shocked, Shen Sangxing and Li Xiantong both halted in their steps. Looking at the two who had retreated and unable to detect the faintest traces of fighting intent from them, they started to wrinkle their brows, obviously unable to understand their intent. Facing the doubtful stares coming their way, Lin Jing gave a helpless smile and said, "There's no need to continue fighting. For this last checkpoint, let's consider it your win," said Zhu Qingshan while shrugging his shoulders. Upon hearing their replies, both Shen Sangxing and Li Xiantong gawked, something which was replicated by all of the students around the spiritual light mountain. A split second later, furious sounds of cheering that shook the skies erupted out. Lin Jin and Zhu Qingshan had actually admitted defeat on their own accord. That would mean that they have passed through the last checkpoint. All of them would obtain their spiritual light empowerment. Their year's worth of bitter training wasn't wasted. They've given up, her. Mu Chen also felt somewhat shocked. However, it was too much of a surprise for him. Lin Jing and Zhu Qingshan were obviously not weak. However, Shen Sangxing and Li Xiantong were not the slightest bit weaker than them. Even if the former two were to utilize all of their cards, they might only be able to achieve an evenly matched situation. However, this kind of result would already be unable to create the slightest bit of change in the entire situation. Of the three fights, Mu Chen had won his, while Shen Sangxing and Li Xiantong had both achieved draws. Therefore, once this result was out, it was already unable to be changed. Since that was the case, there was simply no point for this confrontation to continue. However, Lin Jing and Zhu Qingshan's straightforwardness was something that made Mu Chen feel slightly intrigued. He had assumed that they would cross hands for at least an exchange before choosing to give up on the fight. He never imagined that the fight would be over before it even began. Obviously, both Shen Sangxing and Li Xiantong were having the same thoughts as Mu Chen, since their jaws were slightly hanging down. Not only did everyone have a feeling that they had no choice, but to withdraw due to this unexpected turn of events, it truly made people fall into a bad mood. They were originally planning to enjoy the fights to their heart's content. However, they never thought that Lin Jing and Zhu Qingshan would not give them such a chance. So, this ends like that, huh? Said Shen Sangsheng, as he restrained the boundless spiritual energy radiating from him. Hearing those words, Lin Jing smiled in acknowledgement. With a flick of his finger, a ray of spiritual energy shot towards the sky, before exploding in midair. In the next moment, as the surrounding space started to faintly distort, two old figures slowly appeared from within. Upon them appearing, a hoarse voice rang out, "Since Lin Jing and Zhu Qingshan have given up, the victors for the final fight goes to the side of the students. According to the rules, all of the students will be able to obtain the chance of spiritual light empowerment." Hearing the final verdict of the two elders, countless students reacted instantly by emotionally cheering out loud. Waiting for the cheering voices to gradually decline, the two elders turned towards Mu Chen, Shen Sangsheng, and Li Xiantong and said, "You three have achieved victory in the final fights, therefore, you three will get your deserved rewards." One of the elders waved his sleeve, causing three bright and resplendent rays of light to shoot out, before transforming into three clumps of light in front of them. Within the clumps of light, one was able to see approximately 3 meters tall clear and sparkling spirit crystals. There seemed to be liquid slowly flowing within them, and they radiated with extremely strong and pure spiritual energy fluctuations. These were spirit crystals of Spirit King level. Furthermore, from the thickness of the spiritual energy present, it was clearly much stronger than the spirit crystal that Mu Chen had obtained from killing the Spirit King from before. The spiritual light empowerment the three of you will receive is different from the rest of the students. After 3 days, head to the punishment hall. There will be elders there who will personally take action to help with your spiritual light empowerment, said one of the elders with a smile. Hearing the elder's words, the students in the surroundings were casting envious gazes towards them. However, all of them knew that this was something that Mu Chen and the other two deserved. Without them, all of the people there would have already lost their qualifications to undergo the spiritual light empowerment. Looking at the clear and sparkling spirit crystal in front of him, Mu Chen faintly hesitated, before asking, "Elders, would it be possible to transfer such a spiritual light empowerment to another person?" Upon hearing Mu Chen's question, Luo Li's beautiful face faintly changed, before instantly being suppressed by Mu Chen's glare. The two elders had also gawked upon hearing his question, before they turned and shot a look at Mu Chen and Luo Li. From the looks of it, they seemed to have some inkling of understanding, since they replied with a faint smile, "It's not only you three that are entitled to such a special spiritual light empowerment. There's another criteria that can be fulfilled to obtain it, which is to obtain a complete spirit crystal of the Spirit King. Only when one has one of these would this criteria be fulfilled." With a thought, he immediately brought out his half of the spirit crystal of the Spirit King out. Luo Li had also fished her half out. Placing the two halves together, they seamlessly fused together. Extending her jade-like hands, Luo Li received the completed spirit crystal. With the gentle light radiating from it, it caused her youthful and absolutely beautiful face to appear exceptionally soul-stirring. "Elders, would this be all right?" Mu Chen asked with a smile. Mu Chen, for the spiritual light empowerment, the more spirit crystals, the greater its effect. Seeing Mu Chen handing over half of a spirit crystal to Luo Li without the slightest hint of hesitation, the two elders could not help feeling slightly surprised before speaking their thoughts. Mu Chen declined to comment on their words. Although the spiritual light empowerment was admittedly important, in his eyes, it was clearly not the slightest bit as important as Luo Li. Tugging her slender and jade-like hand against Mu Chen's palm, a gentle ripple undulated within Luo Li's clear and limpid eyes, as she stared at him. After seeing Mu Chen's determination, the two elders did not continue to say any more. Retracting their gazes, a strong and vigorous voice resounded in the ears of every single student. Since the results of the final fight are known, I will now announce that this hunt is officially over. As the last of his words rang out, countless rays of bright and resplendent light erupted erratically from the horizon. As they shot out, everyone was enveloped under their light. Under the envelopment of the light, Mu Chen unfurled his hands and looked towards the expansive space before him. Instantly exhaling a deep breath of relief, he was finally able to exit from there. This video will end here.